Yeah, are we live? We're live, right? I'm live? Oh, hello, chat. How's it going? Apparently, I may get more subscribers because I understand the Saturday Night Live is taken off the air due to a writer strike. I wonder if these writers understand how easily replaceable they are in the age of ChatGPT. Like, you can replace an entire room of writers
We're live, right?
with just
live.
one guy.
Hello, chat. How's it going?
I will find myself and I'll shut myself down. Here we go. You can replace an entire room of writers with just one guy on ChatGPT. Like, if you want to know just how good ChatGPT is at writing, um, go ask it to write you a script of a movie that's called The Life of George Floyd, and ask it to write it in the style of H.P. Lovecraft, and then ask it to write it in the style of Michael Bay, and you're going to be amazed just how creative it is. So all you need is a guy in a room with ChatGPT, and he comes up with a concept, asks ChatGPT to write it, and then he just makes a few changes, puts it back into ChatGPT, and repeats this process, and you're going to get with a script that's miles ahead over what Hollywood can create. So yes, here's a daily reminder that Matt Walsh played Mario Kart. I think there's a video where he actually played GTA. This is why I do not take a lot of moral busybodies seriously, because time and time again, and I noticed that moral busybodies literally despise this argument, but it's so freaking true. The moral busybodies at something, the more likely they are that they are doing the thing they don't want you to do. Perfect example, people complaining about Hogwarts. Like, there were the moderators on Reset Era deciding that no one is allowed to talk about Hogwarts at all because it's an evil game. So the first thing that you notice is that they were still using advertisement on their website for Hogwarts Legacy. But secondly, you go to their Steam profile, they were all playing it. So I don't know what to say, but I've noticed this so many times, without exception. People who are moral busybody got something, they're more likely to do it. There were, back in the day, politicians which were family oriented, right? Like family friendly politicians. They didn't like gay people. A lot of them were outed as gay. I don't know. It is what it is. I think like one of the things is like, how often is a person like you would have to be so upset about the phenomena that you only talk about it, and the only reason you're like that is because you're ashamed of the fact that you're doing it. Matt Walsh loves being hyperbolic, same with the anime. Well, the thing with the anime and Matt Walsh, I'm willing to give him a pass because he was joking. But he did write an article explaining that video games are harmful, and we're going to read it. And that's what we're going to do today. And it's not just Matt Walsh. Like, I do not do this to attack Matt Walsh or anything. I'm doing it because I have noticed the rise of moral busybodies on Twitter that are on the right. And I don't like moral busybodies, whether they're right, left, or center, or different ideology altogether. They are... Like, it's a moral good to be against moral busybodies. I can't think of anyone that actually goes around moralizing nonstop. And is actually like a decent person. Oh wow, Midwest Finest, thank you for the donation. Just got paid. Spend wisely. No succumbs. No succumb. My life is a succumb now. But you know what? I'll buy assets. I'll not buy the succubus. How's that? Walsh is not a busybody. He's got a family. His family has to live in current American culture. You can't stay blind to these things. Yeah, but like, I'm not saying that you're not supposed to criticize the culture. But what I am saying is like, what do you replace it with? That was my argument. Like, you don't want people to watch anime. Okay. You don't want people to play video games. Okay. What do you want them to do? Watch Netflix? Hollywood? Like, what do you replace the things that you're taking away? And as I said on Twitter, I have learned more conservative values from Naruto than I have learned from going to church. Like, Naruto taught me a lot of cool things. Dragon Ball also taught me a lot of important messages. Why do you think the left is foaming at the mouth because they can't control anime. And every single year, there's another anime coming, and like leftists are up in arms. Oh my god! Oh, Legend of the Shield hero is insinuating that women can lie. Oh no! Oh no! Like in fiction, you can't have this. Oh, you have Attack on Titan insinuating that the oppressors can become the oppressed and vice versa. Oh no, that's fascism. No. Right? Like, if the left... I mean, look. Every single time you have, like, an actor that just moves a little bit off the edges and starts spewing some right-wing talking points, the left freaks the fuck out. That's how much they care about entertainment. Like, for them, it's pivotal. It's important. Meanwhile, like, I see right-wingers on Twitter going like, no, entertainment is bad. We should, like, I don't want to talk about it. Complete dismissal. You replace it with real childhood trips and activities with your friends. Do you do that every day? You know, like, trips and activities are fine, but, like, do you do them nonstop when you're bored? Like, there are times when it's raining outside and you just sit in your house and you want to do something. Like, what do? Stare on the walls? Like, social media bad, entertainment bad. You know, like, do you want to become Amish? I mean, that's an option, you know? Like, if you want to become Amish and have fun the same way the Amish do, sure, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to want to do that. Like there are legitimate people who constantly complain about technology, right? And you wonder, like, why don't they become Amish? And the reason is because apparently they want you to become Amish, but they still want to enjoy the benefits of technology. So let's read a little bit at the argument that Matt Walsh has been making. And this is the, I think, like, what triggered Jeremy. I don't know why he got triggered now, because the article is from 2018. I'm going to be honest, like, maybe he changed his opinion. But I do remember in 2018, Donald Trump went against video games. Very cringe. And by the way, the left goes against video games as well for literally the same thing. They say that video games cause sexism. So why is that a bad thing? Well, because sexism leads to violence, right? So the right-wingers, they say video games lead to violence, so they just skip the step. But when Donald Trump said that video games lead to violence, you had the Kotaku and Polygon and all the other publications immediately freaking the fuck out and being like, oh my god, oh, that's so silly. That's so silly. We know it doesn't do violence. It does sexismus and racismus. It doesn't do violence. Okay. President Trump held a meeting on Thursday, says Matt Walsh, to discuss violence in video games. It's been said that he blames mass shooting on video games. But that's not actually his position. That's not anyone's position. It used to be during the Bush era. See, I remember, I'm a little bit old. Like, literally, every single time there was a mass shooting in the United States, you had Fox News going, it's like, oh my god, he had a copy of GTA under his bed. Clearly, that's what drove it. And it was also something that a lot of murderers used in their trial as a defense. Like, their argument was, look, I'm unhinged because video games made me unhinged. But the thing is, like, at the time, video games were kind of new. So most people didn't know what they are, right? Like, they didn't know the exact impact and influence. Like, you go to a judge that was in his 50s, and you're talking about video games, right? And the jury, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to get the jury to sympathize with them. And it's like, well, this poor innocent kid, you know, straight A's. He started playing video games, and they corrupted his mind. So because a lot of lawyers realized that this is a tactic that may work, a lot of people that did mass shootings did say, it's like, yeah, because I play video games. But in reality, it's absolutely an unhinged belief, because if that was the case, almost everyone plays video games now, so the crime rates should have been skyrocketing, but we don't notice that. So Matt Walsh says that nobody thinks that video games are the only factor contributing to the problem. The pro-video game people refer to rail against an argument nobody is making because they cannot respond to the extremely logical and irrefutable argument. So apparently, what Matt Walsh is saying is that there are two types of people. There are the normal people and the pro-game video game crowd, right? The pro-gamer crowd and the normal people. So Donald Trump is saying we have to look at the internet because a lot of bad things are happening to young kids and young minds, and their minds are being formed. And also video games. I'm hearing more and more people say that the level of violence on video games is really shaping young people's thoughts. This is the same argument that I had when I grew up with Tom and Jerry. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous now, but people were saying that Tom and Jerry is violent. I would like to point out that the violence in video games right now is actually on the decrease. Like, if you guys remember the video games like Soldier of Fortune, video games back in the old days, they had like gratuitous amounts of violence. Like, you had the dismemberment, you had the you could shoot a person in the belly and the guts would come out. They don't make video games like that anymore. And not only that, but if you guys remember the childhood stories that existed before, like Disney and stuff, like Hansel and Gretel, right? Like they literally pushed the witch in an oven. The Little Red Riding Hood, like before the more modern version, they would have like the wolf actually devour the Red Riding Hood piece by piece. Was very descriptive. And then you also had Cinderella. Like in Cinderella, they cut off their foot, like part of their foot, in order to fit into the sandal. Like the stories that our ancestors told to their children were violent as fuck, right? Like this is not something new. It's like, but on top of that, you also have the ESRB. Like, children are not supposed to play certain video games. Like, there is a rating that is specifically made to prevent kids from playing video games. Now, why shouldn't adults enjoy it? Like, if your argument, adults shouldn't enjoy video games because children... I would say something, but I'm on YouTube. Alcohol causes violence. I want it banned. Yeah, like, that's another thing. You know, alcohol legitimately causes more violence than video games. Like, and this is proven. It's scientifically proven. But no one wants to ban alcohol. I wonder why. There are no adult games. Aren't they? I think they are. Shaping young people's thoughts, forming their minds. Yeah, like, this is an interesting point. You know, like, a right-winger that wants to do activism and has money, like the Daily Wire, instead of fighting against video games, they should create their own video games. Like, you should create right-wing video games. I don't know how they would look like, what form they would take, but the best example is Comicsgate. Like, Comicsgate is a bunch of comic book professionals which got sick and tired of the way Marvel and DC handles business, and they're making their own comic books. That's what right-wingers should do. I'm making my own video game. I'm not pushing right-wing ideology in it, but my point is, if more people were to do this rather than go, it's like, no, they're bad, stop watching. No, like, give an alternative. Create your own. Because, as Matt Walsh has identified here, a child is influenced by the images, ideas, and sounds that are bombarding his brain. Correct. And if the only thing that's bombarding his brain is left-wing ideology, then create alternatives. As I said, Naruto has taught me more conservative values than going to church. Naruto is a great TV show. Sure, it's not perfect. I'm pretty sure there are some messages there that some people may disagree with. But there are a lot of wholesome things about Naruto, you know. It teaches you about friendship, the Takno Jutsu. Very important. Anyway. My mom didn't approve of me watching Speedy Gonzales because he was always violent in his revenge towards Sylvester the cat. Yeah, like when I grew up, cartoons were a thing. I am willing to bet, it's impossible to prove, but I am willing to put money on this, that this is the case. That before cartoons, people were complaining about books. Like, they would be like, no, my child is reading this book. It's very harmful. There's a lot of violence in it. And before books, it was probably the theater. And before the theater, I think, like, people were actually violent. You know, because, like, what's worse than sitting at home and watching TV or reading books is probably going out and getting involved with a gang. I think, like, getting out and getting involved with a gang is, like, the worst. So, like, you know, at the end of the day, even if it's, like, woke cartoons, you'd rather have your kid watch woke cartoons than going out in the neighborhood and getting involved with some street gang. But That was actually very popular back in the day. The London gangs and, you know, the hooligans and stuff, like, they existed. Who remembers the original Tom and Jerry where they got very violent with each other? It's kind of interesting. Children were not reading books 10 hours every day. Oh, that is so fucking wrong. That is such a false statement. Because when I grew up, we had cable that just appeared, right? Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if you're from Romania, you know, if you remember the 80s, you probably know what I'm talking about. But when I grew up, there was little entertainment. Like, you didn't have comic books, you didn't have anything. So the only thing you could do was read. And there were people that literally read books nonstop. Like, they would read fiction. So they wouldn't read, like Jules Verne, for example. But they wouldn't just read a book. No, they would read constantly. A lot of garbage literature. Like, it wasn't literature that taught you anything, and most of it was quite violent as well. You know, Vinnetou, I remember reading that. But, like, you would go to the school library, you would take a book that you liked, you read it, and when it was done, you'd pick up another. I remember colleagues of mine that would literally walk the street with the book in hand, the same way that people have smartphones. Like, they would just sit in the trolley with the book open. Or in the sub, in the bus. They would constantly read. No, like, the idea that people wouldn't want to have entertainment, that's ridiculous. Oh yeah, the Choose Your Own Adventure books. I remember those. But, like, the idea that, like, reading was somehow sacred, it's bullshit. I do not believe it. Depends what you're reading. You know, if you're reading, like, science books, yeah, sure. But if you're reading, like, a garbage story, even if you're reading Vinnetou, how is it different if you read Vinnetou versus if you play Warcraft 3? Right? Like, Warcraft 3 has a story. It's also stimulating your creativity in order to figure out how to take down your opponent. How is it different than reading Jules Verne? If you're playing Monkey Island versus reading Tom Sawyer, it's a story. Same shit. I refuse to believe that there is much of a difference between them. No, better gangs than woke, is it? I know that gangs aren't very woke. They haven't diversity councils yet. We were comparing them to fairy tales. Liberty or dead. You are moving goalposts? Am I? This is a slippery slope because the bombardment of messaging and influence. I got a ghetto to introduce you to. Also, I don't believe in the my diverse, my environmental situation narrative. Yeah, no, like, I covered this. It's like, okay, what would you want people to do? Stay in home and watch TV or go out and join a gang? Obviously, you know, like, there's more choices than this. But if I were to be worried, I think, like, in the past, when kids went outside, was a lot more dangerous than now that they're sitting at home and playing video and watching anime. The perfect life would be a balance between the two. I don't think it's healthy to play video games 11 hours a day. I don't think it's healthy to watch anime 16 hours a day. But I don't think it's healthy to just tell people, like, no, you're not allowed to play video games at all. Go outside. Go outside 12 hours a day, you know. Shantu's Art of War is terrorist reading. Was it? I wouldn't be surprised if they labeled it as such. Stay home and start a gang. Well, no, because, like, I remember when I was a kid. See, I'm comparing it with my childhood. I was growing up in a neighborhood with people from all walks of life. It's how the left called it back then. You know, they didn't call it diversity. They called it all walks of life. So it was very colorful individuals that would encourage you to start smoking cigarettes, to start doing drugs, to join gangs and stuff. I was the one that sat at home playing computer games. I'm actually happy that happened. They were bad influence, chat. Some of them are in prison now. Like, video games literally saved me from that shit. I don't know what would have happened if I kept staying outside and playing with those children, but I wasn't. I was at home playing video games. Dealing with my video game addiction. Capra cu 3 years, Romanian folk tale. Do you remember it? Yeah, like, most fairy tales are violent as fuck. At least the ones that I grew up with. I don't know, like the new ones don't seem to be as violent. The ones that Walt Disney making. They're cringe, but they're not violent. You can still hurt yourself from the cringe. Like if you cringe too hard, you might spray something, so. Anyway, shaping young people's thoughts, forming their minds, says Mount Walsh. Of course, a child influenced by the images and ideas and sounds that bombard his brain. It isn't healthy for a child or anyone else to spend hours a day playing any sort of video game, least of all violent video games. No, I think like it's not healthy to spend hours playing video games, right? But violent or not, it doesn't matter. Like, if there is one person that plays FIFA all day versus another person that plays League of Legends all day, I think it's literally the same shit. In fact, I'm willing to bet that people who play FIFA are probably more violent than the ones that play Doom, right? Like, the people who play Doom are less violent than the people who play FIFA. Hashtag change my mind. I need to find Crowder. You can cite the studies proving that violent video games don't contribute to violence in kids. I can cite studies proving they do. I actually read some of the studies that Matt Walsh is citing, and they do not say that the violence is long-term, right? Video games can cause violence, that's true. Like, for example, you're playing League of Legends, and your teammate is a douchebag, so you get angry, you get agitated. You hammer that N-word. You get banned. You're upset. But that goes away. You know, that's the same like someone watching a game of football and his team loses and he gets angry. That doesn't mean that long term they're going to be raging. That means that while they're playing the video game and they're competitive, for a couple of minutes they can get angry. It's like reading a sad book, which makes you sad for a couple of minutes after reading it. It doesn't make you fall into depression. Like if you read you watch The Lion King, right? And you see that fucking cat die as he gets stampeded and trampled to death. Right? You get a little sad while watching that. Because otherwise you're a human piece of shit. Like how can you not cry? The cat just died. But you're not going to end up being depressed for life for watching that, right? So this is what the studies that Matt Walsh is saying. Like, yeah, you get angry, but I'll tell you what, you get angry from other activities. You can get angry from playing poker. You can get angry for going and watching horse racing. Like, it's not just, like, anything that's competitive can lead to anger. I mean, holy shit, when I was at high school, and I saw, like, the colleagues of mine, because I wouldn't play with them, because they would kill me. Like, they were twice as big as me. Like, if they kicked the ball into my head, I would have ended up in the ER. But they would play soccer, right? Like the jocks. I know how angry they were in the locker room. Like, they were literally upset, right? And like, it wasn't a violent video game. I would say that people playing soccer are actually more prone to violence than the people who play Call of Duty. American football is deadlier than their game. Absolutely. I have no doubt that American football is far more deadly than League of Legends. But for some reason, no one is against American football, and they shouldn't be, by the way. Monopoly can be quite violent. You know what? Like, that's actually interesting. I never had violence happening at the Monopoly table. The worst I had was some idiot, like, flipped the Monopoly board, and he was never allowed to play with us again. But Monopoly, like, is a really chill game. Yeah, like Andre is saying, usually people make other people angry, right? So it's like any group activity can have the potential of making people angry, especially if it's a competitive group activity. So it's not really about the game. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, you can have a knitting circle, like a knitting competition, and you're like if people are legitimately invested and they want to win the knitting championship and they're fighting against other knitters, that has the potential of upsetting people. So anyway, right, so apparently, like, this is the funniest one. So he cites studies, and we can go round and round throwing studies at each other until it finally dawns on us. Maybe some things are far too complex and buried far too deeply. No, because the studies you showed do not show that there are long-term effects. They just say that, well, like right after the game, people can get angry, which is true. But there are other studies that show no, there are no long-term effects of people who play violent video games. Some mass shooters weren't video game fans. Some were. Yeah, but that's... Oh my fucking god. You know, this is like some mass shooters drank tea. Others didn't. The Sandy Hook school shooter was obsessed with video games. He made... No, seriously, this is the argument that Matt Walsh makes. Like, guys, just stop for a second. This is important. Alright? Like, everyone just stop what you're doing and pay attention. I want you to sit down, because, like, you're going to fall down laughing, so I don't want you to hurt yourself. Okay? The Sandy Hook school shooter was obsessed with video games. He made 83,000 online kills before he went and killed 20 children. Like, this is written by an adult. Like, this is actually... No, I'm not kidding. Like, this is written with black letters on a white piece of paper. Well, not piece of paper. On a white screen. So he got 83,000 online kills before he went out and killed 20 children. Do you honestly think... No, like, seriously. Okay, let's take Matt Walsh's argument for real. Do you think if I go to the military and I want to enlist, and I'm like, do you know how many kills I got? I got 83,000 online kills. Do you think, like, they are going to be impressed? Do you think I could get a job at a private security company? I can be like, dude, I got 83,000 online kills. Play Scrabble then, says American Outlier. Then call me family members hate me. I never had the opportunity to play Scrabble with my family, but I can imagine. Walsh is trying to Trojan horse my violent video games. I don't think so. I think like this is just a bad take. It can happen, you know, like when I release 4 videos a day, I can have a bad take. Even people like Matt Walsh can have a bad take. I missed the movie nights on Discord. It was nice to see some good movies instead of whining about everything new. Also, I hope your new game is going well. Well, thank you, Zedif. I'll actually show you a couple of screenshots. Matt Walsh would get PTSD playing Madden. He actually played GTA, so... What do you think caused more more damage? Video games or single mothers? I mean, there are statistics that show that people without one parent, you know, regardless if it's by accident, like, you know, one parent passed away, or by choice, divorce, yeah, they have a higher percentage probability of becoming delinquents. Makes sense, right? Like when you have 2 parents, there's 2 people that have the opportunity to talk to the child. But when you have only one, and that parent has to have 2 jobs. But not only that, like I'm thinking it differently, right? Like if I didn't have a father, when you're especially if you're a guy, right? When you become a teenager, at one point, chances are you're physically stronger than your mother. Like legitimately, like she cannot physically restrain you. So what does she do if you misbehave? Like, does she call the cops on you? Like, what is the solution? Is the government going to come to control her child? Like, if you have an unruly child, right? Like one that, let's say, hangs around with gang members. And he can physically overpower his mother. And he has no respect for her because of how they grew up. Like, maybe he doesn't respect her. What can she do? What are her alternatives? Like, what are the solutions that she can enact? How can you control? Anyway. So perhaps we should try to apply some common sense to this issue. But there's already common sense to this issue, right? Like the common sense to this issue is that there is an ASRB rating and children aren't allowed to play violent video games. Like the common sense issue already exists. It's also interesting, you know, like the same argument that the left makes with banning guns. It's like, oh, we should ban guns because they're harmful. And Matt Walsh is like, oh, well, you know, violent video games. Not to mention, like, how can you even ban violent video games? Aren't they protected by the First Amendment? Well, thank you, Regen, for the $50. I've played a game about saying the president's daughter from a bioterror organization to save humanity. I am a threat to Matt Walsh. That is actually a good question, right? Like, most video games actually have you as the good character, right? So like, wouldn't that, like if they influence and bombard people, wouldn't that make everyone a model citizen because like they're going to try to save the daughter of the president from a bioterrorist organization? I can hear these baby mamas reeing from the hood, says American Outlier. I will tell you something that can really upset them. Whenever the government wants something more, so for example, the Hungarian government, right? They want families to have more children. They want to encourage birth rates. So they do tax cuts and welfare. But usually welfare, right? Like when the government wants something more, they do welfare. They give you money. It's like, do this more because we like it. When the government wants something less, like for example in Europe, some governments want to get people to drink less. Other governments want people to get less fat. Other governments want people to stop smoking. They tax, right? So when the government wants more of something, they give welfare. When government wants less of something, they tax. In America, they give welfare to single mothers. Like if you want less single mothers, you put a tax. I know it sounds ridiculous, but think about it, right? Like if you're a woman and you have a kid and you're like, okay, well, the government is taxing you now. But if you get married, you don't get taxed. I guarantee to you, overnight, all those women will get married. Like just, you would solve the problem with single motherhood in America. Is that politically correct? I don't think you're going to get elected if you say it, but this is how you'd solve the problem. You tax it. The moment you get married, there's less tax. In fact, you know what? You give welfare if they get married. Am I still salvageable? I've killed millions in Total Warhammer. No, man. Like, you should be on a watch list. So anyway. Perhaps we should apply some common sense to the issue. A moderate video game habit. Isn't this like the China solution? Like the Chinese government actually tracks people's online presence. Like you have to show face. Like they have facial recognition stuff, fingerprints, right? 2F authentication system, and then they charge like how much you play video games per day. There is nothing more dangerous in my mind than a grown man who has been influenced by women emotional. Well, we just described almost every single man on earth. A moderate video game habit, not involving graphic and violent games, will not harm a child. As of 2014, the number is surely higher. But again, like, children are not allowed to play violent video games, Matt Walsh. Like, the ESRB is there, and it's literally saying that, okay, this game is rated for teens, this game is rated mature. Like, what more do you want? Do you want the police to come in to enforce it? So the average American over the age of 13 played video games for about an hour a day. An hour a day for a child is probably already too much, says Matt Walsh. Well, yeah, like, probably. Shouldn't it be up to their parents? Like, it depends on the child. I know the joke, the internet meme. But it really does. Like, maybe some children can play 1 hour of video games just fine, and others cannot. It's up to the parent. Yeah, like, shouldn't you let the parents parent? I mean, I don't know. If it were his only screen time, it would be fine, but it's not. He's also on his computer, on his phone, watching TV. Almost half of parents report that TV is always on in their house. That's not good. Kids need to read books. Why? Why? Why do kids need to read books? Why do they need to? They need to play outside. It depends what's outside. If you're in the ghetto, you wouldn't let your kids play outside. I mean, if you're in a really nice neighborhood, then sure. But like, if you're in a poor place, if you're in a place with trailers, trust me, it's best if the kid stays inside. Parenting in America. Well, come on, it can be done. If the average time spent on video games is about an hour a day, that means a significant amount of people spend significantly more time playing them. I personally know of some kids who play video games for 2 or 3 hours. Motherfucker, I played for 10. And you know what? I am so fucking glad because I didn't go outside. Like outside, there were people from all walks of life. No matter if the games are violent or not, that's not healthy. Yeah, but like, if we're going to ban everything that's not healthy, what are we left with, Matt? What do we end up with if we ban everything that's unhealthy? Okay, so we ban sugar, we got ban alcohol, we ban guns, we ban cars, we ban, like, come on. You know, like, everyone does unhealthy things. I refuse to believe there is a person that legitimately does only healthy activities. Adults do not do only healthy activities. You know, like, some things are more dangerous than others. If it's about, like, playing video games for 3 hours, fuck it. It's a lot better than going outside. I used to play for 6+ hours a day. Newbie. I wouldn't let my kids play outside in Chicago. Yeah, see? This is what I'm talking about. I would really like to ask Matt Walsh, like, do you want to allow your kids to play in Scat Francisco in LA? Or do you want them to stay home and play video games? Like, if you had the choice. Like, there's no other alternative. Either inside or outside. The last people in the world I would trust to define the word healthy are neoconservatives. No, like, no one should define what the word healthy is than you and your family. Right? Like, you know what's best for you. And even then, like, some people, like, you should be allowed to do unhealthy things. For example, you know, if people want to smoke cigarettes, it's unhealthy, but I don't think they should be banned. I do not think, like, smoking cigarettes should be prevented. I mean, this is literally the story of Demolition Man. So in the Demolition Man universe, everything healthy is, only things that are healthy are allowed, and everything unhealthy is banned. And it's a dystopia. It's a fucking nightmare. If I wanted to win the study for study competition, I point to the multiple studies showing a link between depression and video game usage. But I won't point to them because, oh, well, okay, so now you're worried about depression. Now it's like, well, okay, if something depresses you, it should be banned. Well, by this logic, Matt, I think your entire show should be banned. Like, the Daily Wire should be banned. Every time, unironically, I'm not even making it up. Like, every time I read an article from the Daily Wire, it makes me depressed. You know, I don't enjoy reading the fact that, oh, look, some other bad shit happened in the world. Like, the standard of living is going down. The economy is getting fucked. Look, the left is trying to take away more of your rights. Huh? I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, reading the Daily Wire gets you depressed, but I don't think you should ban it. Yeah, Tim Pool as well. Like, every single time I look at Tim Pool, it's, oh my god, World War III. Oh, the Civil War. Like, the news are very depressing, man. You as a newsman, you shouldn't try to ban things just because they're depressing. Neocons, it'll cause depression. Also, neocons, there's no such thing as depression. Is that a thing? I don't know. It's just it's just like, I don't like this. This is a mostly American mentality where, like, everything harmful needs to be banned, right? And that you don't have, like, the parenting. It's like society should parent for you. It's just weird. Seeing clips from the Daily Wire makes me depressed. Makes me depressed as well. The Daily Wire is fucking depressed. The news in general is depressing. Why? Because it gives them clicks. Sometimes it feels like Tim is trying to manifest the Civil War. I'm really curious, like, if Tim Pool, because I asked this question before, like, what if you have a time machine and you send Tim Pool after the Civil War of the United States? Like, what would he talk about? And someone told me World War II, and I was like, oh. How often does the news actually cover good news? Yeah, like, literally. And do you know why? It's because good news doesn't spread. Right? The only time good news spreads is if it's like, you know the person, or if it's someone close to you, or if it happens in your neighborhood. But outrage spreads more. Like, this is literally why the left managed to dominate social media. It's because social media websites notice that if you have a video with cops abusing a suspect, it spreads a lot more than if you have a video with a cop rescuing a kitten from a tree. Any media you consume should be divided from emotion. Because most media targets emotion is a method of retention. Always try to slay the emotive shit to decide. I mean, they actually did this experiment on Facebook. It got people upset at the time because, you know, manipulating the algorithm wasn't something that was done. It was, I think it was early 2016. And they literally tried this. Like, they tried bombarding people with news based on emotion to see how they react on their public profile. So, like, for example, they would bombard people with sad news in order to see how they manifest themselves on their public profile, and other people would be bombarded with happy news. So, yeah, like what Oris is saying is absolutely correct. But what's also interesting is that emotions that are negative, like outrage baiting, right, like clickbaiting with using outrage, actually spreads a lot more than if you make something wholesome. Remember when everyone was locked down and all news media was propping on video games as a good thing for news socializing while nobody was allowed outside, just for them to go back to calling it bad? Well, no, because it's not the same people, okay? Like, let's not pretend that the same people that promote video games are the same people that are suppressing it. I don't even know if Matt Walsh feels the same. I mean, this article is from 2018, and it happened after Trump attacked video games. But I don't think like he still believes this, because I've seen him play GTA. So it is what it is. But there are people on Twitter that are legitimately against anime and video games, and I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, if you want to wage your anime jihad, like, I'm not going to stop you. Because that's what I find funny, you know, like, they're not arguing with institutions or something. They're arguing with people that have, like, a couple of subscribers and an anime avatar. And they're freaking out and saying, oh my god, you got an anime avatar, you're a pedophile. And I'm like, okay, we'll call the cops then. Like, no, seriously, like, if you legitimately believe that the person with an anime avatar is molesting children, why aren't you calling the cops? Call the FBI. Baron Trump has made Donald Trump see the light with video games. Is that a thing? Like, did Donald Trump change his mind on video games? Matt Walsh doesn't hate video games. He just said that kids shouldn't play video games all day. Yeah, but like, okay, so first of all, kids shouldn't play violent video games already. Like, the ESRB exists, right? So the argument is mute. And secondly, kids should play video games as much as their parents allow them to. Like, this is a thing between parents and children. This is a thing about parenting. Like, some children who grow up in Chicago, maybe they shouldn't stay outside and play. How about that? Do you want your kids to go outside and play in the streets of Chicago? Especially with the new mayor. Have you seen his opinion on crime? You know, like, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should stay inside more. Now, if they happen to be in a rich neighborhood, if they happen to be in Martha's Vineyard, then yeah, maybe they should go outside. Do you see how much it depends? And why you can't talk about groups? I'm getting really tired of the right. They are becoming Puritans again in order to fight other Puritans. Banning anything fun and becoming econ fascists willing to do economic damage to their enemy. It depends, man. It depends. I mean, this is not... So, there's going to be extremists on both sides. And I'm pretty sure that if the right-wingers would get back in power, like, eventually you'd have moral busybodying from the right. But I guarantee to you, if the sides were balanced again, if right-wingers managed to get back in power, it would take at least 8 to 10 years until they would start, like, their moralizing to the level that the left is doing now. Like, moralizing from the left is far more pervasive and dangerous than the shit that the right is doing. I mean, look at the Hogwarts boycott, right? Like, you have VTubers and entire VTube companies that are now changing their contracts and the way they're operating because, like, a few chuckleheads on the left managed to swing their big dicks around. American Outlier, thank you for the 50. The problem is that majority of media is left-wing, but what is also interesting is that the selected bias of the viewers. For example, my aunt knows that Epstein didn't kill himself, but believes Trump is racist from the same news outlet. Jesus fucking Christ. The thing with Epstein is very interesting because I've seen journalists from the left and the right, like, agreeing for the first time that, yeah, like, the thing that happened with Epstein is very suspicious. Yet no investigation, no articles, no nothing. But there's also, like, an experiment that was done, which goes to talk about what American Outlier is experiencing. Let's say you're reading a newspaper, right? And you're reading about a subject that you personally know. So let's say it's anime, right? Like, you're reading about Naruto. And the take of the journalist is so fucking bad that it makes you cringe. And you're like, well, come on. You know, like, there's no fucking way. Like, why are they writing this? But then you flip the page on the exact same publication, even like exact same journalist, and now he is writing about a subject you don't know about. And now he's writing about Twilight. And all of a sudden, like what the experiment noticed is that people are willing to believe the article that they don't know about, despite the fact that previously they have read from the same journalist an article that is completely batshit insane. And this is like all the freaking time. Like, it's not. And I think like the reasoning for this is that news aren't news, they're entertainment. Like, at least what America is consuming, I would call it entertainment. It's bread and circus. Like, you're not getting the news, you're getting an editorial about the news, spewed in a way to spark emotion. So people want the emotion, they don't want the news. When you actually did get the news, like during the BLM riots, there were a lot of live streams that went on Twitch, that went on Twitter, and immediately the ADL and many other NGOs were freaking out. Why? Because like people could look at those live streams as if looking outside the window. There was no editorial, there was no nothing, like you could literally see what was happening. And the ADL itself, which previously said that every single police officer should have a body camera, they wanted to get police officers to stop streaming the riots. And Twitch actually banned any streaming of the riot, regardless if it was editorialized or not. Why? Because they do not want people to watch the news. What they want people to watch, let me show you in a bit. Is this famous internet picture, which even in Romania is popular, right? And it's this one. This is what people need to watch, right? Like fiery but mostly peaceful protest after police shooting. Do you know what's burning in the background, by the way? Because it's even funnier when you actually find out what building is burning. The police station, right? So you have a picture with a police station on fire, right? It looks like it's after like a war zone with cars burning, with all of this shit, right? And you have like the CNN journalist telling you that it's mostly peaceful. And I will tell you why he's doing this. Because like he could have reported from somewhere where you don't see the fire. He is doing this because no place that he would position himself would not have a background with something burning behind it. So they don't want you to know the news. They want you the editorial. Like this, the red thing with the white. This is what is important. Like this is what you need to get into your head. That it's mostly peaceful. If a right-winger was there kicking a trash can, you know, protesting the COVID mandates, oh my fucking god. Yeah, this is a 2020 classic. Like what they call them on the internet. A 2020 classic. I remember when I saw it, I was like, get the fuck out. No, this cannot be real. There is no fucking way. And then I looked at it and I saw it like live and I was like, oh, come on. Really? Like there is no way this is not going to upset people. And apparently it did not. Like no one got upset. No one, you know, like CNN still had the same level of credibility before and after. Because I literally checked the charts. I was like, come on. Like this is so in your fucking face. There is no fucking way. There's no way like they could get away with something like they did. And like, it's not like people didn't see the picture, because it was such a meme. Like, almost everyone posted it. I was still blue-pilled in 2020. I fell for it. How could you fall for it, though? You literally, like, have the thing burning in the background. Like, your eyes do not deceive you. I like, Midwest, I would really like to talk to you about this. How can you fall for it? Yeah, I know the video that Outlier told me. It's like buildings being burned in Minnesota. It looks like, no, honestly, like it looked like a nation, like a third world country that just got out of war. It was horrible. But it was mostly peaceful. Remember when Kyle crossed state lines? I mean, that was newsworthy, right? I did American Outline. I saw. But anyway, let's go with the video game. So, this is where some video game apologists. I love how Matt Walsh is now considering that people are video game apologists. You know what's interesting that Matt Walsh doesn't consider? It's not the 90s anymore. Like, everyone plays video games. Literally, every single person. I do not know a single person that does not play video games. Like, they don't exist. Seriously, like, do you guys have someone in your life that does not play video games? Unless maybe they're like 80s or 70-year-old or something like that. But even grandmothers, like, they still play something on their smartphone. So, 8,000 hours of their life that they waste on them. So they'll often pretend that there is nothing toxic about violent video games at all. No, like, I do agree that it's not healthy to play 8,000 hours of your life. But at the same time, I also agree that I do not want to live my life in a healthy manner. Like, I don't think any person lives their life in a healthy manner. Like, some people are addicted to sugary drinks. Other people smoke. You know, it's like telling a smoker, hey, did you know that it's not healthy? And they'll be like, yeah. We all know it's pretend. We all know that the images are digital. We know you are not a serial killer. Like, you know, if there was a word that I would remove from the American language, it would be the word we. Like, the word we should be treated like the N-word. If you say it, you get fired. If someone, like, goes back into your Twitter timeline and says, notice that you used the word we 20 years ago, you should be fired. I guarantee to you, America would have a much better and healthy ideology if you banned the word we from the dictionary. Literally, every bad shit that happens has someone using the word we. So we all know it's pretend. Who's we? Right? Like, the idea of, like, making you sound authoritative. We. No. I know it's pretend. I know that the images are digital. I know you are not a serial killer, but the fact remains that you still enjoy pretending to kill people. This is such a dumb fucking argument. Look, just listen to this again, right? So Matt Walsh, I know it's pretend. I know that the images are digital, but the fact remains you enjoy killing people. I mean, yeah, sure, Matt. You know, like, most of human entertainment since the Roman Empire involves killing people. Like, the Bible, you know, Jesus Christ dies. Like, there's people dying in the Bible. People read that. Now, I have heard a very interesting argument, though, right? Like, I did hear an argument saying that, well, actually, if you watch a violent TV show, right? So you watch, like, a movie like Saving Private Ryan. I think, like, Matt Walsh would agree that Saving Private Ryan is not, like, a harmful movie, right? Okay, so if you watch Saving Private Ryan, it's different than if you play Call of Duty, because in Call of Duty, you actually do the killing. Right? Like, in Call of Duty, you move the mouse, you move your character. So my question would be, okay, so then is it that the script writers of Saving Private Ryan, who are writing the script, and they're killing the characters as they're writing, are they unhinged? Because it comes from them, like, they're visualizing the action, right? And they're writing it. What about George R.R. Martin? I mean, George R.R. Martin has wrote some really disturbing shit. Is he a person that I should cross the street if he comes up to me? Because, I mean, let's see. George R.R. Martin, he wrote about rape. He wrote about child rape. I mean, there's like this Arya lookalike, which Ramsey Bolton uses his dogs to screw her. Like, that's in the book. It's not in the TV show, but it's in the book. Like, R.R. Martin has a very sick imagination. Stephen King, I'm not even going to go into that. Like, Stephen King is one of the most deranged writers that I know. So, this killer clown is coming and it's killing everybody. How can we stop him? Oh, I know. Let's have an orgy in the sewers while we're underage. That's in the book, by the way. Like, if you're not aware, it's not in the TV show, but in the book, right? The losers gang, they all gangbang the female member of their gang in order to create a bond of friendship. Like, it's on Wikipedia. You can check it out. You don't have to read the book. Just replace Matt's position with any other entertainment medium, and you will see how insane and ridiculous his position looks. Gotta ban those porn magazines and people spending days reading fantasy. Well, the first thing you'd want to ban if you like legitimately want people to live healthy lives would be alcohol. The second thing, like the left says ban guns and stuff. I mean, everyone is going to have an argument about why something is harmful that they don't use and they want to ban it for a lot of other people. I love the fact that people in the chat literally do not know. But yes, no, like in the book It, the one with the clown. That's what I'm talking about, right? Written by Stephen King. In the book, at the end of the first book, you have the losers group, right? Which is a group of children. One of them is female. They have sex in the sewer. All of them take turns in order to have sex with the female of the group. They're all underage. That book sold millions. I'm not making it up. It's not something new. It existed. Like, this is what annoys me when people say that anime is degenerate. It's like, motherfucker, have you read some American literature before anime even became a thing? I mean, I can go on. I can give you, like, several titles that have, like, really bizarre stuff in it. I just gave the example of Game of Thrones. There's a lot of sick American literature out there. Was it in order to become grown up and become adults? Dude, they were underage. I don't care what the reason is. Like, it's written by the mind of Stephen King. And by the way, I'm not even freaking out about it. It's fiction. It's like, okay, he wrote that disgusting shit. All right. Very weird, but okay. Maybe it sounded good in his head. I don't know. Knew it wasn't peaceful, but went with the narrative and didn't care. But at the time, I became questioning things. Well, that's good, Like, I guess, like, the CNN has woken you up with the fighting, but mostly peaceful. I remember when they were initially going to these events, and they were dodging stones and bottles like it was the Matrix. Like, literally, at the beginning, they were going to these events and saying how peaceful they are, and you could see the reporter just, like, it's like bullet time. Because people were throwing with shit at them. I didn't know what's worse. That he imagined that, or that the pretext he was establishing friendship through a gangbang. Yeah, like, that actually makes me wonder, like, what does Stephen King understand by friendship, Like, most other people, they write My Little Pony, friendship is magic. But then you have Stephen King, and he's got, like, a complete different understanding. And for some reason, My Little Pony gets more criticized than Stephen King. Hunger Games was basically a smut or erotic novel and a vehicle for the author and her fantasies for deathmatch. I don't know, man. I don't care. It's like, see, this is the difference between myself and other ideologues. This is fiction. Like, as long as it's writing, it's a drawing, like, I don't have to like it, but I don't want to ban it. If other people want to read it, good. I don't want to read it, it's nasty. But in the case of Stephen King, actually, I would still read it, because, like, the story is actually good. Killer Clown. But that part is nasty. Which is why they didn't include it in the TV show or the movies. You don't get that part in the movies, right? I think, like, The Shining also has, like, some furry sex in it. Like, The Shining actually has this BDSM thing happening where there's a guy in a wolf costume. It is nasty. King is on that. Of course he is. I'm looking at his takes. I'm curious, like, if he's against anime as well. There's other nasty stuff in that book. Yeah, I mean, but like, no, like, some of the nasty stuff in that book makes sense from, like, a narrative perspective. Like, for example, I forgot the name of that girl from the Losers Club, right? Like, but she's sexually assaulted by her father. But at least, like, that makes narrative sense. Because it's like you're supposed to sympathize with her, and it shows, like, why she is the way she is, and it's like something bad that's happening. Like, it's justified from the perspective of, like, she's coming from, like, this very abusive family, right? But like having an orgy in the sewer so that they establish friendship, like I'm pretty sure there's other ways to establish friendship. Like that's not even narrative driven. That's out of the blue. That's like making a supernatural episode that Sam and Dean Winchester start fucking out of the blue for no reason. It's like, well, you know, we're brothers, Sam. Yes, Dean, I know. We need to solidify our friendship. How? Suck my cock. You know, it's kind of like that. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, why is it in there? Why did you put it? It is nasty. But even then, even no, hold on. Even with the supernatural, even with the supernatural episode, that would make sense because you do fan service, right? Like there's a lot of thirsty women on Tumblr that wanted to ship Sam and Dean. They would call it scene. But in the case of there is no reason for that to happen. Not whatsoever. Yeah, we all flow down. That's like Tarantino showing feet all the time in his movies. Yes, but like with Tarantino, at least it's not that nasty. Like when he shows feet, like they appear and it's like usually in a situation where a person would show feet. Like they're on a sofa and they're just wiggling the feet or whatever. Right, like that's fine. It's not sexual. Yeah, like he can disguise the foot fetish. Yeah, so in conclusion, I do think Matt Walsh has a really bad take in here. I do believe that this should be up to the parents to decide how much kids should play. The idea that kids should go play outside depends. Like if you're in California, yeah, maybe you should stay inside. Violent video games are not for children. You have the ESRB already, so there's no more argument. I don't know. And conservatives should create more conservative media. I think like everyone agrees with that. I do not think this is a bad take, right? Like I genuinely believe that more conservative entertainment should exist, which is why I supported the Comics Gate, which is why I support video game creators. Like for example, the guy that made Five Nights at Freddy's, right? He got canceled by the left. When were the conservatives supporting him? Because like that was a right-wing video game. Now it didn't have right-wing messages in it, but it wasn't woke. Like I would rather have more not woke stuff than more woke. But it is what this is why the left got freaked out about it. It's because they couldn't control it. It's like, what, Five Nights at Freddy, we don't control it? Oh no, like get the guy out. It's too popular. Notice how the left doesn't even care until something becomes popular. It's only when it becomes popular that they get involved. Anyway, right. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. And as usual, I'll see you guys tomorrow.